lover of all things that help to liberate us and help us to live in harmony with these vessels and beautiful nature all around us. I'd like to take you on a journey through nourishing enemas today. A little bit different than probably most of the enemas you've heard of, more in the cleansing enema department. This is more of the nourish and nurture and feed through the colon kind of enemas. So let's jump in. What makes some of the ways that these two categories of enemas will be different is the amount of liquid used. So we have a scale of, the amount of liquid and the amount of cleansing, all the way from a colonic, where we might be putting through 20 gallons of filtered water through the colon, and that's on a gentle drip and release cycle, to a more typical enema, home enema, which would be, from 1 liter to 2 liters, or you might do back-to-back enemas, you might get a couple liters in there at once, all the way down to, retention enemas that we're going to hold longer so we have a smaller amount of liquid, all the way down to suppositories, which is a very small amount of medicinal substance that we would insert in the rectum. It's actually a pretty effective way to receive certain kinds of medicines and certain kinds of nutrients through the rectum. It does not have all the capacities of the rest of the digestive system, but for specific things, it does, bring into the bloodstream. It does reuptake certain kinds of essential minerals, and liquids, fluids, electrolytes. So we can use that to our advantage. And then also another difference would be the duration of hold time. So a lot of times when you're doing a cleansing enema, you really don't even care about holding it, you just let it in and let it out. You're just kind of rinsing, washing. And that's especially the case when you're doing something like a colonic or you're doing multiple enemas back to back. But if you're doing a nourishing enema or a nutritive enema that you want to receive, you're trying to feed yourself somehow through this procedure, then you're going to want to allow a longer hold time so that you can get the most benefit from that solution. So those are kind of like the overall sort of strategy of it. And then let's look at 3 different categories kind of what might be considered a nourishing or nutritive enema. So first of all, I'd say we have something like a mineralizing kind. Then we might consider a probiotic kind, where we're trying to actually build and refresh the flora in that lower tract. And then we might even have another category of moisturizing or, kind of soothing, nourishing. And then I'm not really going to get into so much like straight on, medicating through that way. But it's there if you want. And I know like one of the main ones that is very effective with it that I know about is using melatonin in a suppository. So let's start with the mineralizing. So we've got the most basic, right? We've got salt. We've got a good mineral salt, right? You can put that in your enema. You can absorb some of that good stuff. You can put concentrates or ionic minerals in there. You can put different kinds of salts, so different kinds of electrolytes. So for example, instead of your regular sodium chloride, you could do sodium chloride. You could also do potassium chloride. You can do magnesium chloride. You can do that trifecta of those 3 for, some good electrolyte balance. Obviously, we know we can use Epsom salt in an enema, which is magnesium sulfate. So there's a fine line between what we use as cleansing enema and what is mineralizing nutritive enema. You're familiar with some of these options in the cleansing enema, but one of the things is we might do more concentrated, or we might try to hold it longer. We might have less water. other people might use celery juice in the enema. Again, it doesn't have to be full strength celery juice, or if you do want to use full strength celery juice, I'd recommend trying small amounts, because otherwise you're just kind of wasting juice if your body just expels it right away. They also use wheatgrass juice in enemas for this, for its super healing power. Barley grass juice powder could be used to reconstitute for an enema. You can also use even straight chlorophyll drops for your enema. And on this mineralizing, kind of bridging into feeding, some people recommend meat stock and bone broth in an enema. And this would be especially for people who are, they have a lot of digestive issues. They need to rebuild that gut lining. They need that collagen and gelatin and all those really good things in there. But they are, for some reason, unable to consume it orally. They're refusing to eat it, or some other reason. If you're just like rolling in bone broth, it's definitely something worth trying. And for some of those specific cases, then that would be where it was specifically indicated. So after the remineralizing category of nourishing enemas, we have the probiotic, or pro-flora types of enemas. There's a wide variety of options here, and again, one of the strategies with this would be to put it in at night, small amount of liquid right before laying down, or while you're laying down, and then just stay laying down and go to sleep and allow it to be in there overnight. So that's a really good way to use the nourishing enemas. You might have to experiment with how little fluid, maybe it's just half a cup of fluid. So one option for the probiotic type enema would be fermented brine. So these could be homemade, or if you're really lucky and you have a source for, a really good, made by someone else, fermented brine. It could look like a beet kvass, it could look like kraut juice, it could look like pickle brine, and this would be combined with some water and inserted. If those actually, so homemade fermented products have a way higher amount of actual probiotic strains and viability of those probiotics than most things we buy. But if your only option is purchased probiotics, either in the form of capsules or another form, then you can break the capsule open and you can put that, you can mix that with the water, or you could mix it with one of the other things we've talked about, and insert that as your enema. Kefir, raw milk, homemade kefir, yogurt, can also be used. Just experiment with how much, you can put in. And you might think raw milk would be a good option for nourishing through the colon, and it, could be to some effects, but I will say that the milk enema is specifically part of a ropeworm parasite protocol invented by this Dr. Gubarev, Russian guy, and you will find that parasites really like the raw milk. They like the sugars of it, so they will come and eat that. So it may not have the same effects that you are going for. Whereas the kefir and the yogurt, they don't like that. So that will just work in reestablishing the flora population that you want. And these probiotic sort of implements, or suppositories in a way, enemas, you can also use in the vagina as well to help with rebuilding the flora. The third category would be more of the oil, moisturizing, soothing, and these would be super, mostly indicated for those who have severe constipation and sort of like a drying problem with the colon that needs some soothing and needs some lubrication. It's indicated for more vata type people, so the more windy, sort of like have issues with their joints, they're dry, they move and talk fast, and then at the vata times of the year, so like the changing of the seasons, the windy times, or like around if you're traveling or moving a lot, that could be a good time to complement maybe a joints oiling practice with some kind of oil enema. And you can use your favorite oil, so sesame oil, and I would recommend a cold pressed oil. I wouldn't put anything in my colon that I wouldn't want to eat, so a good coconut oil, a good olive oil, a good sesame oil. I've heard people even using tallow or an animal fat. And this is going to really help lubricate really the whole body, supply these good fats to the colon and the body. So those are the main types of nourishing, nutritive enemas that I wanted to cover today. And my study and this list is not exhaustive, and if anybody has any that they would like to contribute or share or pass along that they learned from a grandma or that they utilize or have heard about, I would love to hear about them. And I'd love to hear about your experience with trying these enemas out, and hopefully we can start to build more of a base of knowledge around these different sort of a little bit lost ancient skills and practices. So thank you for tuning in, and I wanted to share and offer that I have developed a enema course, so it can take you from total novice, never done an enema before, to like navigating these different options and different categories of enemas. It gets all the way into the how-to tutorials, the products that you might want, and then into all the different categories and uses of different enemas, including when and how to apply them. So if you're interested in that course, drop me a line, enema course, drop a comment, and I will hook you up. Take care, and may all beings be blessed and liberated.